Welcome back to CVine. We are doing our daily Gitmo updates, and these are eyewitness reports. And the report today, coming in from Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, is going to be for this last week, which is going from June 26th to the 30th. And so we're going to talk about that in a minute. In the meantime, as a reminder, we are all going to Fort Meade, and hopefully you will join us in August, all of the month of August, to be able to sit there and all of you can see with us exactly what goes on with these trials. There's going to be 3 separate ones going on in August, and you can see these in a special room in Fort Meade. And it has via CCTV with a 40-second delay, exactly like there is in Guantanamo Bay, and also exactly what it is in the room next door in Fort Meade, which is for official reporters. We're just going as an eyewitness of the public. There's literally no difference in what you see. It's just, I guess, how they segregate you out. And so we're going to need as many people there as eyewitnesses on exactly what happens, because you can't bring in a camera, you can't bring any electronic devices whatsoever. All you can bring in is a pen and paper. And then afterwards, check against what you heard and what you saw against the transcripts that they put out and so on. So there's ways that you absolutely can fact check everything. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, but in the meantime, please go ahead and like this video if you like it, and become a subscriber if you aren't yet. So that would be great. Okay, hold on here a minute. Okay, we're taking you on over to our CVine website, which is c-vine.com, c-vine.com. For future reference, for those of you that don't know, CVine acronym stands for Community Voices, Investigations, News, and Education. We are all just regular we the people, and coming together to help bring you the news, do the research, do the educating, and we're just pulling together like it was when we first started America. All right, so here's where you can come to get all the Gitmo reports. We post the actual publishings here, and I also wanted to bring you here because if you want to become a member of the website, receive daily, or not daily, actually probably bi-weekly, a couple of times a week. If you need, want a newsletter, we put those out. That is request. We request to be a paid membership. Otherwise, this entire site is free. There is absolutely no paywall. There isn't even any advertising. So this is yours to check out. But we also do ask you to notice this. Here we have a button put up for Gitmo travel donations. We are not mainstream media. We don't have big corporations paying for our hotels and our food and everything else. It's coming out of our own pockets, and we depend upon your donations and your help to be able to do this. So if you can't be there and if you are able to help, please go ahead and do whatever donation you feel comfortable with, and that's where this button is. Okay, so now I'm going to move on over to the next one, which is the actual website of the Office of Military Commissions. Shown this before. For those that you are new, the Office of Military Commissions, Gitmo, does have their own website. You can see anything and everything Gitmo on this website. And I highly recommend you get used to this. You start looking it over, navigating it, see how it works. But just a couple of things here in the beginning. The actual website address is mc.mil/home.aspx. I will put this address in the description bar. You come here, it's everything you want to see. I like to scroll down for the purposes of today. You can come here at the end of every trial day. You can get your daily transcript. They post it up here. You can read it in depth. When we go over these, we basically do things in bullet points instead of going through an entire week of the entire blow by blow, so to speak. You can come here to the daily transcripts and you can read it in depth. We just do bullet points to take note of. Okay, there's press releases here. There's the calendar. There's active cases, inactive cases, etc. It also has places where you can have the viewing sites. Fort Meade seems to be the only one that's available for the public. Keep in mind, Trump made this available to the public in January of 2019. January of 2019. That's when we started viewing them. This is when we started hearing about it. And hardly anyone ever shows up there, and which is sad. It's, I'll go into that later, but you must be aware of what is going on there, even though it may not be what you expect. I think what you're going to find out, you're going to see why things have been so quiet. And you will see it just simply from watching a couple of these trials and the different things that habitually happen. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to go over to on the calendar, which I click this button. And this is for the month of June. This month we have the al-Nashiri trials, which is actually pre-trials. The al-Nashiri trial actually was the USS Cole bombing that happened in 2020, and they still are in pre-trials, as is the majority of all the other trials in GTMO happened many years ago. The majority of them are still in pre-trial. And we're going to start discussing why you think this is. I think you're going to start to see why. But in the meantime, so we've had about 3 weeks. This is the last week of the al-Nashiri trial of the USS Cole bombing. And we'll show you some more information about exactly what the USS Cole bombing was about. Moving over here, though, this is the next thing I want to talk to you about. This is kind of important. I was waiting for the month of July because this, again, was going to be Khaliq Sheikh Mohammed et al., KSM et al., the 9/11 trials. And again, as you can see, for July 2023, all of them are canceled. They're all canceled. And this has been going on. And what I'm going to be doing next month, this is a preview I'm telling you about, is I'm going to be using all of next month, and I'm going to bring you up to date of what has been going on with KSM et al. Trial. Do not say, well, I don't care. I don't want to know anything about it, and so on. Yes, you do. If you want to start connecting dots and start understanding what is going on, you need to hear it. And you also, especially with some leaks that came out lately, like what is it, Capistrano leak point that came out, rulings that came out from the House of Representatives stopping NewsGuard from being funded by the Pentagon. A number of things that have been coming out. The pre-trials that happened in January of 2020 were of major significance. 2 months after that, GTMO, the whole world shut down. So you go ahead, and I'm going to explain all of this, along with I'm going to be bringing in Professor Leroy Halsey, who is the professor who did the forensic analysis over 4 years of the collapse of Building 7. I'm going to be bringing on some other architects and engineers. I'm going to be bringing on some other individuals that are going to be describing some things, and also some situations that have happened in the trials over the years. So while these are now, which is another point, the KSM et al. Trials are in plea deals. So if all 5, because there's 5 being tried at once, that's why they call it KSM et al., is all 5. If all 5 of them plead guilty, they will take death penalty off the table, give them life in prison, and ship them back to their country of origin. But there is a whole lot more to that. You need to understand, you need to know, and you need to have eyes on exactly what they're doing. There's a reason why all these plea deals, in my personal opinion, are going on behind closed doors. And I'm going to explain, as much as I am aware of, all of this stuff that I tell you is not conjecture. Every single bit of what I tell you, every piece of the puzzle can be fact checked. And I beg you guys to please fact check me. Prove me wrong. Prove me right. Whatever. You need to get out there and figure it out for yourself to see if what I'm saying is the truth, because each piece of the puzzle connects together and it's going to put up a great big picture and you're going to know what's going on. So hang in there with this next month. I'm not surprised this happened, but we'll see. And then, of course, going over to August, we have 3 different trials going on, and this is where we are going to be. And we are going to be asking that as many people as possible that are in the area, or if you can show up, be eyes on with us. We are going to give instructions on how you go there, how you get on base, where you find this. We'll walk you through it. Now, one thing before I go on, I wanted to point something out. I went back over to June. Here, you will notice that they have some of the trials here showing. I don't think you can see where it says, let me move myself out of the way. Okay. You can see here, like they have some trials on Saturday and Sunday. That is not true. They very, very rarely will have trials on the weekends. Number one. Number two, sometimes the hearings will actually be either in closed session, or maybe they will have rescheduled it and they don't put it on this calendar. So I'm going to be keeping in very close contact with the wonderful people at the OMC and try to keep abreast of this, but don't just show up without maybe calling them and checking to make certain they have something going on that day, instead of going there, especially if you're traveling long distance, and finding out that it's been canceled or postponed, or it isn't scheduled to be going on, even though the calendar says otherwise. All right. So now I am going to go over here to Twitter. I am starting, just so you are aware, that I am starting to do more on Twitter. And I am requesting that if you would like to follow me on Twitter, that would be great. I'm putting more information out there. I was banned a couple of years ago, just before the election. And so I had no desire to go back, but things are changing and I'm keeping an eye on it, but I'm starting to go ahead and build up again. And I might even start doing some shows on Twitter, which apparently you can do, but I need to build up again. So my Twitter address is, as you can see, Linda Forsythe at Linda4Cvine. That's Linda, the number 4, Cvine, Cvine. There's no dash here. Okay, so you can see I'm just starting. And if you come on, I'm being much more active on this because they're really allowing much more to go on. So for today, I am going over to Carol Rosenberg's Twitter account. Carol Rosenberg actually is a journalist that works for the New York Times. Now, I am not a fan personally of the New York Times, but Carol Rosenberg has been a journalist that has been around covering and watching Gitmo since the very beginning. Since I believe 2000. She used to work for the I can't think of it. It's a newspaper in Florida. But anyway, she stopped working there and now does a lot of things for the New York Times. And she's actually quite good and she's fairly accurate that I can see. There's only been a couple things I didn't agree with, but for the most part, she's pretty good. That's why I am using her tweets that she does, because this is something separate. As I said, these are like bullet points. And if you want to follow her, she is actually physically in Guantanamo Bay, physically there covering these trials. So, and she's usually always there. If not her, then there's somebody else. But that is what I'm going to be going over today. Hers is Carol Rosenberg, at Carol Rosenberg, CarolRosenberg. Okay, if you want to follow her more. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and Okay, we're down. We had to scroll down to June 26th, which is on Monday, first day of the trial. Carol states, "Good morning from Camp Justice, the War Court compound at Guantanamo Bay. This is day one of week 3 of these hearings in the USS Cole bombing case. We may hear this morning more about last week's big revelation. Prosecutors suddenly found 2007 tapes." That is of interest. She does have an article here about that. You can click on it to read about this. It has to do with Guantanamo prison videos. That is what they are discussing. Okay, I'm trying to click on this and it's taking a little bit to, there we go. Sorry. Okay. A prosecutor says some as yet undisclosed videos show Gitmo guards forcing the USS Cole case defendant from his cell to an undisclosed destination. One shows guards cutting shackles from the prisoner's ankles days before federal interrogations that his lawyers want suppressed. The videos are so secret that even the judge can't have a copy. A prosecutor said that after something is done to the videos, sounds like something or somebody is obscured, then they can show them in a secret session to the defense lawyers and the judge, maybe this week. Secret session meaning classified. Okay, nothing has been disclosed about their origins. The court filing said the ankle shackle video was made by the military unit called Combat Camera. But there's also been no explanation on who or what the system made the others and who or what agency controlled them from 2007 until this month. Court starts at 0900. We may hear this morning what the judge, Colonel Lanny Acosta, hopes to accomplish this week. He said that these are his last hearings before he retires from the Army on September 30th. But he still has an August 31st through September 15th session on the Guantanamo court calendar. And she shows a picture of that. Now, this is something else to take note of. If anything else, we have another judge either retiring or quitting or stopping because of medical or transferring or whatever. And whenever this happens, there's always usually some delays when they do a voir dire, in which they have to find the next judge. Prosecution and defense has to agree on it. And so another reason why these have gone going on and on and on. There's just a continual circle of various new people coming on. All right. So Carol goes on to say, we may also hear testimony today from Mark Fallon, the retired NCIS special agent and counterintelligence officer who was down at Guantanamo helping prosecutors build cases in the early era after 9/11. He's been a bit of a whistleblower as well. And she gives a SimonandSchuster.com unjustifiable means. It's a book the government doesn't want you to read. President Trump wants to bring back torture. Okay, that's what she just posted there. Now, she goes on about the USS Cole case still in pretrial proceedings since arraignments in 2011. There are lots of reasons for the long delay, including the slow pace of prosecutors turning over pretrial discovery and vacatur of 2 years of the previous judge's rulings. Okay, she has a posting here about what the USS Cole bombing case is about. You can read that. So she has this all together. All right. Update. The hearing is in recess until a closed session this afternoon for the judge to hash out understanding classified discovery questions with the prosecution and defense lawyers. No defendant, no public. Probably the most interesting development was this. It was disclosed in open court this morning that today's witness, retired NCIS agent Mark Fallon, has been a confidential defense expert for the Walid bin Atash team in the 9/11 case for the past 7 years. He has a non-disclosure agreement. So Mr. Fallon will be consulting his lawyer before he testifies on what the judge has described as a narrow issue. Interrogation practices at Gitmo in the summer of 2002 related to an effort to suppress hearsay testimony of Salim Hamdan. The judge pushed Mr. Fallon to tomorrow. Meantime, the president issued a statement noting that it is the International Day in support of victims of torture today. Torture is prohibited everywhere and at all times. It is illegal, immoral, and a stain on our collective conscience. And this is a statement from the White House from President Biden. Okay, so if you want to see that, so on, this is just informing you. All right, update from the War Court. The judge never did reopen after his closed session to hash out missing or anticipated classified discovery. Prosecutors did screen two of these resurrected 2007 videos for defense lawyers, and it says open court to resume at 0900 tomorrow. Okay, and so she has here something that you can look at, which is more about the videos. All right, so then she also said prosecutors just suddenly found the 2007 tapes. If you go into the backdrop for this, it's kind of interesting. Yes, they've been trying to get those, and now all of a sudden this is popping up. So that should be interesting. Okay, now we are on Tuesday, which is June 27th. Carol states what he said. I will be watching from court this morning with pen and paper. And apparently today was on that day on June 27th, it was Mark Fallon. He states, good morning from Guantanamo. I am scheduled to testify in the pretrial hearings regarding the USS Cole attack, NCIS, and the post 9/11 investigations of al-Qaeda for trials before military commissions, pound CITF, as well as the evolution of interrogation practices and effective interviewing. So in other words, torture. And then here she has a nice showing you what Gitmo looks like, little video that they have there. Okay. She goes into detail with this if you scroll down and what she says. Some of it is actually from the 26th that she had done ahead of time. Apparently she did some research, but I'm just going to go up as she posted on the 27th. But you may want to go back if you want to look at this in more detail. The UN rapporteur cited the cumulative effects of inadequate health care, solitary confinements, restraints, and use of force to remove prisoners from their cells, and said conditions at the prison may also meet the legal threshold for torture. Good afternoon from Camp Justice. We are in a lunch break from testimony by Mark Fallon, the former deputy of the Global Criminal Investigation Task Force, CITF, which was charged with building war crimes cases after the 9/11 attacks. In court this morning, Mr. Fallon described a clash of interrogation cultures between himself and a rival Army-led intelligence unit that was not building cases, but seeking to gather leads and raw information to fight aboard and defend the homeland. And in 2002, Mr. Fallon said the Army military interrogators were implementing systemic sleep deprivation and other coercion at the prison in 2002. It was systemic sleep deprivation and other coercion at the prison in 2002. Sorry, I read that. It was routine throughout the camp, he said, to wake prisoners for nighttime interrogations in the so-called frequent flyer program. Mr. Fallon said that those kind of interrogations contaminate the truth, memories of those being questioned. CITF was advocating using rapport-based non-deception to try and get reliable information and build sound war crimes against the military commissions. At issue is whether the judge will allow NCIS and FBI agents to testify about what Osama bin Laden's driver, Salim Hamdan, told FBI and NCIS agents about the accused USS Cole bomber at Guantanamo in the summer of 2002. Defense lawyer Annie Morgan asked about a notation in a file that said Mr. Hamdan at Guantanamo was offered sleep as a reward. Mr. Fallon called that counterproductive. Other remarks by Mr. Fallon, who elevated his concerns that potential war crimes were happening at Guantanamo to the Pentagon. CITF was the only agency at Guantanamo that opposed torture. When CITF and FBI agents did joint interrogations, the FBI insisted on leaving out detainees' claims of abuse from their FD 302 forms, an unnamed FBI supervisor calling it negative reporting. CITF would eventually introduce a different form to document their interrogations. Mr. Fallon said he did not recall ever seeing an allegation of abuse that was made by Mr. Hamdan at Guantanamo Bay, nor did he recall how FBI agent Ali Soufan came to question Mr. Hamdan in the summer of 2002 before agents Crouch and Barghouti got to Gitmo. But Mr. Fallon testified that he would specifically ask for Mr. Soufan to take part in interrogations because of his language skills and his knowledge of al-Qaeda, but agreed with the defense lawyer that he had an earlier interview described by Mr. Soufan was a young agent who engages in deception and trickery, also that he can get in competition with a suspect. After Mr. Fallon left the government, he went to work for the Soufan Group for a while before establishing his own consulting business. He has been active in promoting sound interrogation techniques and teaches that in some instances, memories and bad info can be implanted. In court now is Lieutenant Colonel James Garrett. A case prosecutor is getting Mr. Fallon to agree that he has been outspoken about his negative opinions about the military commissions. Now, the prosecutor is showing a series of tweets by Mr. Fallon about going to Gitmo to testify about rereading his book, etc., and that he believes the judge in this case read his book. Lieutenant Colonel Garrett says it's not true and asks him where he got that information. He asked him whether he's testifying in part to promote his book, Unjustifiable Means, which is what it's called. Mr. Fallon said he's pushing his book to push his message. Mr. Fallon replies that he learned that the tidbit on my Twitter feed, Lieutenant Colonel Garrett says it's not true. The judge has never read any books about the case. Lieutenant Colonel Garrett is questioning Mr. Fallon about his views of the USS Cole investigations and the FBI agents. Some he does know, some he does not. He has been complimentary. There's some rapid back and forth about Mr. Fallon being a consultant for a 9/11 defendant who is accused of killing a fellow federal agent among the victims in the 9/11 attacks. Mr. Fallon, I work for a defense team for a person charged with his murder. The prosecutor is reviewing the timeline when Mr. Fallon says the interrogations at Guantanamo Bay became abusive, focusing on his book to show that it was after the summer of 2007 interrogation of Mr. Hamdan, not during. Lieutenant Colonel Garrett, you know that Mr. Hamdan was treated very well during his interrogations, don't you? These were by Ali Soufan, Amar I can't say this, Barghouti, and George Crouch. Mr. Fallon agrees that CITF treated him very well, humanely. Judge Acosta asked Mr. Fallon what coercive techniques he knew were being used by Joint Task Force 170 at Gitmo before August 2002. Fallon, fear up, harsh, yelling at detainees, duct tape, balled up to stop them from chanting, a circle block for some sort of stress position. Judge, was this only on high value detainees? Fallon, that expression wasn't in vogue at the time. He said there were no distinctions. Okay, here is something that Carol puts out. Conditions at Guantanamo are cruel and inhuman. UN investigation. The report was the result of the first visit by an independent human rights investigator to the prison in its 2-decade history. Here's our story, she says, about the UN Human Rights Report with links to those 2 filings as well. Keep in mind, folks, this is an aside. Carol very much is been pushing along with the Biden administration, along with earlier when Obama was in office to close Gitmo. So just so you're aware of that. And they're doing, I personally believe she's fully using the New York Times in her reporting to gain sympathy from the public to do just that. And I have some of my own thoughts aside that she doesn't mention, but this is from more of a conservative point of view than for what she's reporting. Anyway, I digress. Going up on June 27th, continued, a prosecutor replied that his team would submit the Biden administrator's reply to the report. It defends detention policy and practice for the 30 men currently held in Guantanamo Bay. Most of them are approved for transfer with security assurances. And here she has the report. It's a document that you may want to look at. I think you will find of interest, but for time constraints, I'm not going to go over that right now. Okay. It is unclear whether the medical board has now received the notes that they need to write the report. The record shows that on June 16th, the judge ordered an expedited schedule for any classification reviews of the board member notes to allow the board to prepare its findings. The reason for the delay, the so-called Sanity Board sent word that their notes took longer than anticipated to emerge from GTMO's classification review and redaction system. Here is another report that she puts out for you. Judge delays 9/11 hearings while awaiting defendant's competency. Okay, it's going over a little bit about what we talked about with the cancellation of the KSM et al. Trials. This is what's coming out in court here for next month. Okay, so you can read about that here, having to do with what it's all about. And that's what they were going to be talking about. At this point in the juncture of pretrials is basically mental competency of Rabzi bin al-Shabi. So the judge in the 9/11 case is pushed to August 12th, the deadline for a medical panel to report its findings on the mental competency to stand trial. Okay, so that's what's going on there. Was supposed to happen next month, at least part of it anyway. Okay, so court has resumed. The prosecution is asking for to call former NCIS agent Ken Ruhr as a rebuttal witness to Mr. Fallon. Specifically, the prosecution wants to challenge Mr. Fallon's testimony about his role in the USS Cole investigation task force about Mr. Fallon's book. The judge is going to close the court for lawyers to question Mr. Fallon about his awareness of other agencies at Guantanamo at the time of the Hamdan interrogation. But before he closes, the judge wants everyone to know he hasn't read Mr. Fallon's book. Okay. Good morning from Camp Justice at Guantanamo Bay. We anticipate a testimony from the USS Cole today from the retired career NCIS agent Mark Fallon on what was going on behind the scenes here at Camp Delta and perhaps beyond in the summer of 2002. I don't know how that, I reread that again. I apologize. Okay. Sometimes these tweets are confusing. All right, so this is repeating some of these. I'm going to pause this just a minute. Okay, I found out where I need to be. Thank you for your patience. Okay, she states here, I guess I wasn't the only one that was confused. This way ahead session was hard to follow. The judge said he would do some stuff tomorrow morning, including maybe hear from a rebuttal witness. Then he said he'd spend the morning processing some classified evidence to give to the defense. So it seems that the court is in recess until 1300. The judge is promising some more discovery to the defense tomorrow and says he'll hear testimony starting tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. There's no mention of Khalid, so sounds like that's off, or I misunderstood. And this is where she gives more information if you want to click on it. Okay, so it has to do a report that she had done. Prosecutors disclosed discovery of secret Guantanamo prison videos. A war court prosecutor said the videos, which could cause more delays in the destroyer Cole bombing cases, were so sensitive that et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that's a lot of what these are about. She's rehashing this. In court now, prosecutor Michael O'Sullivan is invoking a national security privilege to not give defense lawyers these videos, to make them display only, even now after faces have been blurred. So give you an idea just to what degree that they go with all of this. All right. Since I wrote that story, the Pentagon appointed panel lifted its prohibition on the judge ruling on fully briefed motions. But now the CMCR has borrowed a courtroom in Washington, D.C., near the White House to hear about the overarching issue. It typically has ruled on filings. Okay, she shows a picture of that. Moving on, appeals panel is examining Guantanamo judge's next job on ethics. This is about the judge that's retiring. That's also of interest. You want to read about this judge that's going on right now to keep up on all this peripheral drama. So lots going on in the USS Cole case as the trial level judge heads to retirement. Okay, she mentioned that before. And then she says, about a lack of torture rehab. Lots to tweet about in court today. And she shows today in the USS Cole hearings at Guantanamo Bay, a defense lawyer submitted the entire report of the special rapporteur that was made public yesterday. The lawyer put on emphasis on paragraph 49 about a lack to torture rehab. The 23-page report is here, and she does a link. Okay, then she brings up this. It looks like there may be a tropical storm, possibly a hurricane brewing, course, and she's showing that. It is hurricane season, though. We're watching two weather systems south of Bermuda this morning. This is on the 28th. Development of the remnants of Cindy. The western one is not expected, but eastern disturbance has a low chance of formation during the next few days while moving slowly northward. Okay, so again, she brings out what the trial guide is for the USS Cole, updated to our guide case and so on. Okay, so I'm going to put this on hold a minute.